All right, hello again, everybody. Welcome into another installment of Saturday Evening Quarantine, number 11?
11.
11. How about that?
Aces.
I'm David Jackson, alongside the Hall of Fame QB Steve Brown, Randy Jackson on the Benny's Beverage Depot sideline. I got the Soulsby's lid.
Like it. Looks good.
It's got a nice tight fit. Got a little American flag on the side here. So I noticed you've already given up your gear. Did they pay you enough?
It's customer relations.
I decided to go the camel route today with the Soulsby's.
My kids fought over the pink one.
Yeah.
I'll bet they did.
Yeah. There was kind of a brawl over that, actually.
Well, you know, I have a pink one too that I'd be glad to donate to that group, so they each have one. How's that?
That could be the unity that we need here.
Spread the sponsorship around.
Well, and Ozzy kind of took one. I don't think that hat's suitable for wearing anymore. woke up one morning this week and I was like, what is all this stuff all over the place? And
What is that?
Ozzy didn't get the memo that you wear the hat. You don't eat the hat. So
I'm hoping now Brown can get us one of those honey pots that he's drinking out of this morning.
what do you got what do you have in the koozie? Good Lord.
I'm waiting on a refill from Bridget too.
What is that thing? And
Look at this.
that's a rosebud vase. Good morning. How are you?
Morning.
Room service from Bridget. Thank you, honey.
I think that Winnie the Pooh's going to jump out of that mug here in a minute.
I think that's a single bud rose vase, isn't it? Oh man, he got Teresa flowers this week, and he's just trying to rub it in. So, oh man, alive. Well, we got a ton of stuff to cover this week, so we kind of need to get into it. We got several emails, a couple of requests. I feel like Casey Kasem here today. So, and we have, I want to tease this early because this is a big day on the quarantine. We have video footage of possibly one of the most debated, talked about, fishtail App State football stories of all time. We've got the video evidence of it today. Steve Brown went to the library at NC State, and he sat in there for weeks and meticulously went through the 8mm film to find the footage, and we can prove once and for all whether Rick Beasley was inbounds or out of bounds in the back of the end zone against NC State in 1980. He has told this story like he was on the 5-yard line when he caught the pass, and there was no doubt about it. We'll check the film and see if he was backing to the left or not. He actually was backing to the left. It was in the left corner. So yeah, I don't know, Brown. How'd you go about this research project?
Steve Rice and I were talking, and he said he'd seen it a bunch, him and John Olson, when he went up to John's place at Blowing Rock. And I said, where'd you find it at? Because I don't have a copy of it. I used to have a copy way back in the day, but somehow that got misplaced. And so Steve kept saying him and John looked at it all the time, and I just was going around typing up stuff, looking for it. And all of a sudden, the audio-visual archives came up in North Carolina State, which, you know, they had the whole game broke up. They broke it up like the old coaching tape: a defense first half, second half; offense first half, second half. So, pretty interesting to see that come out.
So what you're saying is you didn't take the time to split up the ODK yourself. That was all pre-made?
That was all pre-made, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still a grandiose effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Randy.
Absolutely.
I mean, you gotta give credit where credit's due.
That's all right. Well, let us get started here because, again, like I said, we got a lot going, and we need to start with one of our old friends, and I'll explain that in a second. All right, so the show is always brought to you by Soulsby's, who made great on their lids. Brown,
it's a banquet beer.
All right, we're rolling. All right, so I don't know if you guys remember this game or not. I'll be honest, I didn't. I blocked it from my memory. And then when I went back and started reading the recap of this thing, I remember it now. So our boy Warren Boyette Warren, affectionately, he was a former ASN intern turned videographer down in, I believe, Florence, South Carolina now. Works for a TV station down there. Warren was affectionately known around the office as Warren Peace because he could talk a little bit. He was a talker. And so we called him Warren Peace. But Warren Peace sent us a request of going back through the Citadel game from 2011. I'll just ask you guys if you remember anything about this game off the top of your heads. This was in Charleston.
That wasn't was that the Heat game? So hot?
No, that was in 2005.
Oh.
That was the one that we talked about a couple weeks ago with Steve Bear and the pizza.
I'll be honest. I mean, I don't remember too many big events at games at the Citadel.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, so let me jog your memory a little bit. I'm going to stop this share for just a second because I have to read this thing. It immediately came back to me. It was like, oh, yeah, that. So App and the Citadel played in October down in Charleston, South Carolina. This was a game that a couple of key things happened in, actually. So I'm actually going to screen share this right now so we can look through this. Just to give you some context as to who was on the team in 2011. If I scroll here and we go to the box score and look at some of the individual totals, we had Jamal Jackson at quarterback. Now, DeAndre Presley was hurt. Jamal was QBing, but he wasn't the official starting 100% QB, and I'll explain that in a minute. Travaris Cadet, Stephen Miller, both ran for 100 yards in this game. Andrew Peacock was one of the wide receivers, along with it was a great wide receiving core. You had Cadet, Tony Washington, Andrew Peacock, Brian Quick. Man, three of those guys ended up playing in the NFL. That's pretty solid.
Quick had him a nice game.
Yeah. Quick was open 8 times for 131 yards and a touchdown, apparently. And I'm sure he probably could have had 12 catches if we check with him out in your message board. We got Kimbrough, DJ McDuffie, Troy Sanders, and Ed Gainey were still on that team. Ronald Blair, if I'm not mistaken, this was his freshman year. Demery Brewer was still playing at linebacker. Brandon Greer was still on the team. Doug Middleton was playing. He obviously had some NFL time. So say all this to say this was a pretty stacked team in 11. Sam Martin was the punter and place kicker. He connected on all 7 of his PATs. So, you look at the stats and you're like, why? This game looks like a romp, right? Well, it wasn't. Well, it kind of was and it wasn't. This was a game against the Citadel. You may remember, if I go down here to the scrolling score, you'll see that App was up at one point in time with 7 minutes and 32 seconds to go in the third quarter. App was up 49-14 in this game.
Wow.
And then back marched the Citadel to the point where App and the Citadel were separated by just 7 points with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. This became a game with turnovers, blunders, bonehead mistakes, just everything possible that could go wrong from midway through the third to midway through the fourth did. The amazing part to this, though, was that for the final 6-10, I mean, App was, barfing all over themselves in this game. I mean, they couldn't do anything. You got a 2-play scoring drive, 5-play scoring drive. I mean, it's just all over the place, right? So Jerry says, and I read the post-game quotes in the newspaper. Jerry says, "Hey, we got to run the clock. We can't give them the ball back, otherwise they're going to tie the game." So after all of that, for the final 6-10, App runs out the clock and ends it on the Citadel 12-yard line. Took a knee, and that was the ball game.
I do remember that game now.
Yeah.
I remember being on the sidelines. They used to fire that stupid cannon every time they scored.
You probably still have PTSD.
Oh, my God. My ears still ring from that because they kept scoring, and that cannon kept going off. But, yeah, I do remember that. I thought we were going to lose that game, actually.
Yep, and probably, I mean, in a position to do it. And it was, you go back through and look at the play-by-play from this, and so in that fourth quarter especially, Citadel scores, and then it's like 1 yard run, 23-yard catch, fumble, and then Citadel scores, and then it's, minor drive, and then we got stopped on fourth down. It was constant. The miscues were constant. So anyway, I'm not exactly sure why War and Peace wanted to bring that game up. It was a little bit of a nail biter, but it certainly was one where when the offense needed to park one, they did.
Well, look at the in the box score there. Look at the quarter scores there. I mean, App was just rolling along there, 14, 21, 14 in the fourth quarter. Man, it just got shut down.
Yeah, I think they blocked a punt too, didn't they, David?
What's that?
Did they block one of our punts?
We'll check the stats here. I mean, and that's the thing. I went back and looked at we rushed for 318 yards, threw for 234. So you're talking about outgaining the Citadel 552 to 361. But then you go back down into fumbles lost, 2. I don't think Jamal threw an interception in that game. So 2 turnovers. Let's see. We were 9 of 15 on fourth. I mean, you look at the statistics and you're like, how in the world was this a 7-point game? But, you go back and look at some of the other aspects of this, and it wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty at all. So anyway.
I always hear coaches talking about turnovers, big plays. I mean, that right there shows you they scored in bunches, 2 or 3 play drives. And then, then finally we decide to do a good job and salt the game away and run the football late. But
on that box score, is there a weather thing?
Because 82 degrees and sunny.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember it being really sunny. I thought it was warmer than that day too. But
scored 91 points, and it took 2 hours and 45 minutes. It was a track meet.
14,000 people there. That's pretty good for the Citadel.
It was Parents' Day. It was Parents' Day at the Citadel. And so Coach Moore, after the game, said that, we kind of got into the, went through and read through the story afterward and found the quotes and kind of remembering the narrative here that Jamal QB'd that game. And this was right about the time where App made that official transition. And Coach Moore's comment was, hey, DeAndre Presley is still our quarterback. He's hurt. We don't know whether he'll play next week or not. And it's nice to have 2 quarterbacks. If my memory's right, DeAndre didn't play much QB after that and ended up switching over to defense later in that year. And another guy that played in the NFL. So that was the team that did not win the conference championship. 2011, that was the year that broke that streak. That was that year we had that awful game against Virginia Tech to start the year, and things just never really got situated. But you go back and read the roster on that team, and it's like, man, there are like a dozen guys that saw time in the league on that squad. How they weren't better than that, I'm not exactly sure.
Virginia Tech game, guys, was that the first game of the year?
Yes.
Yeah.
They basically destroyed us at the line of scrimmage, and I always felt like they almost robbed us of some confidence that game. It's almost like we could not do anything, couldn't get any momentum going, no big plays. I think Brian Quick had a big play, but to me, they just whipped us on both sides of the ball. And I saw almost like that rolled over to the next 2 or 3 games, and we never could get the momentum like we normally used to get.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And there was promise coming out of that year too, because you did have, remember DeAndre was like a preseason player, like he was a Walter Payton Award candidate.
A ton of starters coming back.
Yeah, had a ton of, and when you think about what those guys all contributed in their career, Peacock, Tony Washington, Brian Quick, Stephen Miller, Travaris Cadet. I mean, that's an offense that is built for explosion. Yeah. And they did well. They just never. The other thing that was interesting in Coach Moore's comments from that game was how beat up the defense was. He said that there were 2 linebackers that were playing safety, that they were just absolutely gutted from an injury standpoint. So, and again, some of those guys, some of those NFL guys, like for instance, Ronald Blair was a young player back then. That wasn't senior year Ronald Blair, that was freshman year Ronald Blair. So some of those guys, got some trial by fire in that game that later or in that season that later served them well. But that freshman class really was the group that helped carry the transition over to the FBS. I mean, those guys in 11 were upperclassmen in 14 when we played that first season, and kind of started. This was prior to the announcement, so everything was still speculative at that point. So you're still recruiting, really with an FCS mindset, trying to kind of seed things that maybe you're getting closer to being able to make that transition. But it's just kind of an interesting moment in time, because it was kind of like at the tail end of what you would call the dominant years of FCS. It was when that was clearly starting to maybe take its fade back downward a little bit, but also at the foundational level of what the team experiences today. So interesting snapshot. Thanks for the memories there, Warren. I think my dad's going to hear that cannon for the rest of his life. And
yeah, that's for sure.
And we're going to be low grade anxious for the rest of the weekend.
Hey, did we go to the Noisy Oyster the night before that game?
I'm not exactly sure what the pregame regimen included at that point, but I'm sure we could phone a friend and find out if we really needed to. But that sounds about right. Those trips were always interesting because we would try to get a little bit of the local seafood flair there and take some time downtown. I remember Henry's was always a good spot to stop for a late night cocktail on our way to bed. I'm trying to remember. I remember one year I went down there and I had a really bad sinus deal going on. And when we were riding in the car on Friday, I was like, man, I my throat's scratchy. I just don't feel good at all. And I woke up Saturday morning, got I think that was Doc Cranston was the team doc back then. And he gave me, like 7 vials of stuff. And it was like, mix all this up and take it. So Lord only knows what I had. But I woke up that next morning and I could barely speak. And I had to gut through one down there that like every big play sounded like puberty. And it was not pretty. I don't know if it was that game or the trip down there in 2009, but I do remember being in quite a bit of discomfort down there at one point.
The worst one I ever saw you gut through was the basketball game in Little Rock.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good thing that there were garbage cans very close to where we were sitting on press row.
I still don't know that we ever determined whether that was a food poisoning issue or if that was Marin was a young kid back then at that Petri dish stage of life. So we went to we were in Little Rock playing Arkansas in basketball the night before at the shoot around. I think I found every trash can in that venue. And I mean, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get home from Little Rock. I was so sick. And then Jason Roby got us doctored up, and I somehow got into position at the game, and then we won the game. And you win a game like that takes it out of you. Donald Sims, that was his freshman year. He went off in that game. Ike Butts, I think, had a double-double in that game, if I remember right. And, man, that took everything out of me. The other thing that I remember is that's one of the few times that Houston Fancher actually came off a little cash for the post-game meal. He took the guys out for steak afterward.
That's right.
But there was a caveat to that. It was delivery steak. He didn't want to take them to the actual restaurant. We got our steak to go and got to eat it in the hotel before our 2 a.m. flight back to Boone.
Man, and nothing's better than a nice juicy steak in one of those takeout boxes, man. You can't beat that. A little styrofoam with that.
Yep. It was delicious. All right. So let's get into the archives here because this is going to take a minute. So the classic, was he in or was he out? If you've ever heard Rick Beasley speak at a Yosef event, which is hard not to, he was adamant throughout his life that there was a scenario in his football playing career that he was robbed in, and this was the NC State back of the end zone play in 1980. It would have been a monumental victory for App at the time, and it's the one that got away. So, Brownie, I want you to set the context to this because we need the factual information, not the crap that Beasley's told us over the years.
We're going to show that play
first.
We'll
show it. I want you to set it up first, though.
Well, we kind of going into that game, Coach Working, and at that time, Monty Kiffin, who later on was defense coordinator and actually maybe a head coach for a while in the NFL. He was the actual coach at North Carolina State. And so they came in, I think they were preseason ranked pretty high in the ACC, but we played them, I think, like the 4th or 5th game of the year. And we were playing better on defense my senior year. They had a coaching change. And Coach Working, of course, did everything on offense. But Les Herring, Tommy West, and those guys had us playing hard on defense. And we were playing much, much better. So they controlled really, our defense controlled the line of scrimmage and played pretty well, held them to 17 points. But going into that game, we felt like we could score. And Coach Working, scripted. He normally didn't do this, but he scripted the first 5 plays of the game. And so we're not going to need 5. We're going to score in 3. And we're like, okay, all right. Been on the cough syrup again. And we're like, we just didn't get it. But we scripted. We worked those 5 plays all week to start the game with. And they did a lot of what back in those days called robber coverage, where they play cover 2 and they run like 2-man underneath and chase from behind. So we always felt like, that Rick and Stan Goods and some of the other receivers could hurt them on the post corner. So we had a pretty good drive going into the game, and we didn't run much of it's like a counter tray action in the backfield. And then we called it waggle, and I would sprint out, and we did that. And Beasley was wide open. We hit him in the corner, and he basically had his hands here. The ball hits here. Then he goes to reseat the ball. He didn't juggle it full speed, but it was like a momentary change of the hands. And I think that it was close enough. He pitter-patted his feet in, we all thought. But, that one little hesitation there with the ball gave those guys enough time to rule them out of bounds. And you'll see on the video where the referee comes in from the side and is doing like this, like he didn't have control of it. And I remember a couple of times, like Pete Camello and myself had made runs, and I got to say the refereeing for the most part is pretty fair, because a couple of times Pete had one ball knocked loose when he was on the ground. I ran a lead option one time, was on the ground, and the guy basically rolled over. The guy punched the ball out, and they dive on the ball, and fans went crazy. But he said, no, he's down right here. So until that point, they did a pretty good job as far as officiating. But we had them beat on that. It's just one of those plays. This angle you'll see is not the best angle. A lot of people talked about when they had the TV show. I think back there was Don Shea used to do North Carolina State shows. He had a great camera angle down to that bottom left end zone, and everybody from App, of course, said that he was in. But that's kind of the setup.
I'm used to seeing you do the lead option on other things. So you said something there that jogged my memory for a second. We'll get to it. So let's watch this now. This is beautiful. This is going to be the thing that's going to settle it once and for all. So this is the first drive. This is the Mike Working says App's going to score in 5 plays.
Yeah,
Brownie, you can take us through the beautiful bean footage here.
What he kept talking about is he's going to motion. You'll see Beasley come across in motion here, and the motion into trips. Now you're flooding the other side of the field, and then Pete's going to come over on like a little under route and watch the poor angle by the corner. He almost scores. That's the first.
Come on, Pete.
That's the first. And I think that's Pete. I can't really see the number. So now we're going to do the same formation. Beasley's going to come in motion again, and now we're going to go waggle to the left side, to the wide side of the field. And he's wide open.
How about that?
So we come over to the sidelines, Working says, I told you. You didn't believe me, did you? I said, no, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Oh, man. I want to watch. We need to watch this back again, because we'll just watch it in real time again, because I want to know, does Beasley go when he runs like that in motion?
Yeah, he does that a lot when he gets hit in the ribs, too. You have to tell him to shut up.
Yeah, that's a terrible angle.
Oh, yeah.
All of their defensive players on that particular run. Didn't Pete Camello play baseball, too?
He was a heck of a player. Got drafted.
Yeah, I thought that's what I thought.
I think he had a pretty good minor league career with the Expos.
On the first play there, was there any thought or any review of whether he was out of bounds or not at any point on that run?
No.
He was really close to the sideline.
Came pretty close. But
roll it back.
Yeah, right there.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean that
That's
looks
close
from
right
that
there.
angle. That looks really close.
I mean, he's tight roping all the way down.
I think he's got those white shoes on, though. That helped, man. You know, you sport the Houston Astros look back in the day. And
Watch
I
the
think
free safety here. Watch when they go in motion. Watch the free safety jump on the quick out. He just leaves the middle of the field.
Oh, yeah. You're
Done.
You're done. You're done. Ball game. All right. So, unfortunately, that's not where the game ended. So let's go back to the Google here, and we'll go to the top link. Really appreciate the video staff at NC State for hooking this up for us this week. This is great. All right, so we're going to run the last couple of plays here on this, just so you can kind of talk us through this final part of the game. So the apps are marching. Looks like you're inside the 30 here.
And David, this is less. Right here, it's about a minute to go in the ball game.
Okay.
I think it's like a minute 30. It's under 2 minutes. Legal procedure. Can't win without effort.
Can't play without your lid.
Can't play without motion.
Speaking of motion, look at all that.
And I think that's either Stan Goodson, and I can't really see the numbers, a little blurry. I don't think it's Beasley, but
you've got some moves, man. I got to say, this is some of the.
I was a spry young lad.
You were. Look at you can hear Beasley arguing that right now.
Yes.
Oh, he's in
that
trouble.
Right there, they changed coverage on us, and we had another tight end delay. And this right here, Jeff Vincent with the hold, Mark French wide right. And that was to tie the ball game. You know, back in those days,
you didn't play overtime, right?
Yeah, it hadn't been a tie ball game.
Yeah, they hadn't invented overtime yet. I think they hadn't invented Ovaltine yet either. I can't give you too much grief because I was actually alive when this game happened. We didn't live in North Carolina yet, but
watch the corner. Is this the last play?
Not the last one, but let's see. It's hard to get to that spot. Let's see.
It's not the
tell me.
I was gonna say watch the corner. No, that's
this. All right, so it's the next one. This is the illegal procedure. That was a great play too.
Yeah.
Yep. I had one of those happen to me in flag football one time. Got us inside the 5, got popped for an illegal procedure. I put my knee into the guy to block.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Like the gold pants too. Are those gold helmets or black helmets?
Yeah, they took away the Yosef head on the side.
All right, here you go. Man, he was wide open, wasn't he?
And that corner, one of the things you tell corners, and it kind of changed some of that now, is don't look back into the backfield. But you can see that corner, he beat him on the post corner, and we knew we could have that. And he just picked back in the backfield thinking Rick was going to run a post, and he broke it back out.
So this is the referee that makes the call right here?
Watch him start doing the juggle motion.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Flipping pancakes. He starts flipping pancakes.
Flipping pancakes.
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, that's a great throw. Back pylon right on it, man.
I love seeing that Brownie action there.
First of all, somebody needs to tell Beasley somebody needs to tell Beasley that even back in 1980, fresh out of the disco era, that we'll get a good look at it here in a second. Hang on. Hey, Chief, nobody wears their pants that high. I mean, his belly button's got to be down like around here somewhere. I mean, goodness. I don't know how he can breathe, man. He's got his belt around his rib cage.
Remember the days you used to wear a pair of pants. People said, man, you got on some high waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he needs the socks to cover the rest of his legs, man, because those things are jacked up there so far.
He could have survived the 100-year flood on that one.
Fastened around his throat, man. Come on. If you're going to make a game-winning catch against an ACC team, you got to look the part, you know?
After the game, Coach Kiffin comes in, which I thought was pretty classy, came in and told us basically we outplayed them and, you know, that they didn't deserve to win. He said, you know, he pronounced Appalachian like everybody hates. And Coach Working corrected him right there in front of everybody. I was like, He said, it's Appalachian. I was like, Jesus.
So how much of a beef was there about this catch or non-catch?
Yeah, there was a lot of, and the bad part about it, where you were sitting in the stadium, it kind of depended on where you were sitting, what kind of angle you got. But they had the slow motion, and we had of course, with our tape, we're on the same level as North Carolina State doing the coach's tape. But I mean, it was evident that he did a great job. Beasley did a pitter patting his feet inside. But again, he had that ball there, and it just a momentarily switch of the hands. He caught it and then changed his hand, and it just gave that guy just enough. That's a tough call to make, but
that's a pretty common football move too. To when you catch like this, it's part of that step. It's the natural tuck.
It's like you're trying to secure the ball.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, how about that?
They talked about they weren't going to show it on the coach's tape as far as North Carolina State football show, but I never saw it. But everybody back home said they saw it. The Monty Kiffin show back in the day.
So is that one of those cases that if that play happened today, it would have been ruled as a completed pass?
Well, they would have been able to review it from about 4 or 5 different angles.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
I think to Brown's point, as long as the ball was secure, if it was just simply moving the hands rather than moving the ball, if they could prove that the ball was lodged, there's a chance that would have been overruled and would have been ruled a touchdown. But you know how those ACC replay operators are. We lost that clip.
You know how the 1980s were.
Yeah. Wow. So Beasley has made this sound like, again, that this was, he was as open as he says he was.
Yeah.
Usually the story goes, I was wide open and I caught the ball and I took a step and I was still in bounds and they said I was out of bounds and then there would be commentary after that would last about 4.5 hours. But
he took about a half step, changed the ball position, and then he knocked both feet pitter pattered in. Yeah. So he was definitely in. But
what was that bus ride back to Boone like there?
Well, me being from Goldsboro, I think we went over that night and went to John Olson's house, and his parents had a big to do with everybody over there, and it was like, we're kind of excited that we played with them, but then you kept coming back. We outplayed them. We just made some dumb mistakes and turned the ball over at times.
How was NC State that year?
They were not very good. They started out pretty well. But their quarterback play, by watching some of that tape, their quarterback play, we stymied them on defense. But that's back when Mike Quick was a freshman. He played for the Eagles and had a great NFL career. And they had some athletes. But the quarterback play, I think their starting quarterback got hurt early in the year. I forgot the kid that stepped in. But really, we controlled the line of scrimmage. Then they had a kid, funny story I was going to tell you last week, that welcome to the ACC. They had a guy named Bubba Green who played in the NFL for a year or two with the Colts. This guy was about 6'5" and about 285. I mean, he was a monster. Great player. Well, the Friday night before the game, I guess he'd stayed out too late for curfew, and Coach Kiffin came out the paper. We were reading. We got all excited, read the paper Saturday morning. Bubba Green was not going to play the first half. Because I'm sitting there thinking, we can't block him. And we're like, all right, he's suspended for the first half. Well, we get up and we start playing him pretty good. And we run out to the field and I hear the crowd starts murmuring. I said, what are they saying? I look over and Big Bubba's in the game about the end of the first quarter. So Kiffin said, get in there. So instead of a first half suspension, it's like a first quarter suspension. And the crowd's going, kill Bubba, kill Bubba, kill. And about the second play we had, he split a double team and he gathered me up and ran with me for about 3 full steps. I was thinking, this ain't gonna be good. He had me running with me and he just pile drive me into the ground. And look, I'm sitting there, big old dude's on top of me. I'm pissed off because he sacked me, like, who missed that block? He's like, welcome to the ACC, white boy.
Oh, wow.
Man.
I was like, what?
Oh, man.
We get in the huddle. We start raising Cain, but I don't care what y'all got to do. Block, hold, clip. And every time he would rush, they told me to have a pass. He's a guy that made a lot of noise. You'd hear him like, I mean, he was just throwing people around. But to our credit, offensive line-wise, we held up pretty well the rest of the game. But he was a player now.
Wow.
Wow.
I could just imagine you getting picked up thinking that you're at Starcade or something like that. You're about to get brought off the top rope.
He had me on top of his shoulders running me for like 3 steps. I was like, I may be paralyzed after this.
Oh, man. That's why you wouldn't play pickup football with us anymore.
That's right.
Flashbacks. It kind of reminds me of Jake Long and Gary Tharrington in that Michigan game. You know, poor Gary got thrown everywhere but to the airport that game, man. I mean, Jake just wore him out.
Wasn't he the first pick of the draft? Wasn't Jack Long like the first pick of the draft?
If he wasn't he was either the first or second. I mean, he was top 2. But man, and Gary was, you know, play FCS teams. Gary could go against anybody in the country. I mean, he was a good player, and
he wasn't exactly the smallest guy either.
No. I mean, but he was athletic. You know, he was a big guy for sure. Yeah. But he was athletic, and he could rush anybody, but not around Jake Long.
I think Jake had spent a lot more time in the weight room than Gary had.
Yeah, well, I do remember a story about after that game is over, you know, so they're doing the film review, and it was chaotic after that anyway. So they actually gave the team an extra day off, and so they get back in and start watching tape of it, and just to point out that there were things in the game that could have gone better, the coaches apparently leaned on the Gary footage a little bit more than maybe they should have, and they weren't too thrilled about that. But there was one clip I remember seeing of him getting tossed out of bounds. I mean, like kind of like the Rocky IV line getting tossed around like a rag doll. I mean, it just like picked him up, get out of the way.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad that you unearthed that, because we can finally put that to rest and understand that you know, Beasley was partially telling the truth there. So that's a good
partially telling the truth. You're going to give him that much, huh?
Partially telling the truth. This is the first time that I've ever heard the part about the ball security issue. It was just I caught the ball, I was in bounds. Not I caught the ball, I was in bounds, and I shifted the ball, and therefore that was the thing. So he leaves out a detail or two every once in a while. So, well, we'll enjoy that. So, anything else on the radar? We got a nice email from Monk Rice again. He continues to be entertained. So we got to find Monk something else to do.
Yeah.
Monk, there's this thing called Netflix. You might want to go check that out. They don't have all the programming in 3 boxes on that.
He's at Myrtle Beach this week, so he's probably big legging us.
He is, I'm sure. Calabash, party of one.
I'll take the fried platter.
Oh man. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of talk up here about, you know, kind of what this season's going to look like. Still trying to figure out, you know, what college football is going to start on time and all that stuff. So hopefully by the time we do the show next week, we might even have a little bit more insight on that. But as it stands right now, they're bringing the team back. It's a little bit more throwback, Brownie, like it was, you know, kind of more in your day and even up until probably about the late 90s or so, where they're bringing the team in. You know, there's really not a whole lot of organized activity, you know, up here necessarily during the off season, and they're bringing them in the last week of July. And that's really when, you know, camp starts. And that's kind of how it used to be. It used to be that, you know, you may have 4 or 5 players up here over the summer, but that was about it. And everybody came in, and training camp was actually training camp.
Right.
That you know, kind of a little bit more NFL-like, where that's where guys got in shape. And now, you know, if you're not up here, you're the exception in a normal year. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into things, you know, from a conditioning standpoint and all of that kind of stuff.
You know, the crazy thing about all that is every day. I mean, yesterday was just a huge day of of all these reports of athletes from all kinds of different walks of life and sports being diagnosed with this virus stuff still. I mean, it went from the PGA to the NHL. I saw the San Francisco Giants shut down their spring training facility. And in fact, I hear Major League Baseball is going to shut them all down and get them all cleaned and disinfected and stuff. And some college football teams have had some issues with that as well. I mean, I just wonder where all this is going and if it's going to go. I mean, it seems to get worse rather than better.
Well, it's going to be, it's forcing these organizations and these, whether it's the NCAA or app or whoever it is to have not only clear policies in place, but what you need to start hearing more about is what happens 4 weeks in when you do get a player diagnosed. What does that mean? Does that mean that player is able to get treated in a way where you can not maybe necessarily, I don't want to use the word guarantee as strong, but you can feel good about the safety of the rest of the team, or will that be the thing? Is like one and done? I've heard some discussion about what happens when a team has an outbreak. Do they forfeit the rest of the season to keep the integrity of the rest of the season? Well, I mean, that's one thing to say on paper. You could make that kind of thing, but the ramifications of how that plays out have a lot of meaning to them. If you're holding the traditional way that college football operates, how do you judge a team that's 9-0 versus a team that's 12-0 because 3 of their opponents, forfeited? And let's just say that those happen to be the best 3. How do you judge that for bowl considerations and poll considerations and all that kind of stuff? So you're going to need a slide rule about the size of Beasley's pant leg to figure all this stuff out by the time it's all over with. But yeah, so hopefully we can get through it and get back to it. Maybe Major League Baseball will disinfect all that money that they're fighting over with too.
I'm beginning to. I just saw a poll that was, a general public poll. 78% of the people polled said that they did not think that there would be baseball this year. That was a Wrigleyville sports poll, David. You'd enjoy that.
People on the internet are always truthful too.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They always act with complete decorum and positivity at all times.
Yeah, if it's there, it's got to be true.
That's right. All right, boys. Well, so we've talked about this a little bit that we might have one more grand episode left here, and then we may take a little break on this. Brown suggested that we go 12, kind of like a season, and then we maybe wait for the year to go back again. So I guess we're trying to make the case for maybe doing this show during the actual season.
Yeah, do it called the Dirty Dozen. Finish the Dirty Dozen next week, and then get some good stories and good feedback on the It's a Banquet Beer at gmail.com, and then start back when the season starts back.
Yeah. So are we thinking about this being like a true post-game show kind of thing that we study the game, or are we just gonna be like, oh, that game was cool, let's talk about some old stuff?
Yeah,
or maybe a combination of both.
Depends on what the email guys say.
Well, we'll talk to Warren and Monk, and we'll see what they say, and then we'll get their feedback, and then we'll go from there.
Right, get the feedback coming in.
So maybe that could be the thing to do. Maybe we could say that if you've got a strong opinion one way or the other, do you want us to actually chronicle the current season as it plays out and also infuse some old stuff, or whether you just want us to go after the old stuff again? Let us know at itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com, and we'll.
Or if you want us just to become old stuff.
That's true. If you'd rather click unsubscribe, go ahead and do so. Whatever. We actually got flagged by YouTube last week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Because of the copyright music that was Dueling Banjos. We didn't get flagged in a way that prevented us from having the post live, but it got flagged that said, and we're not part of this, but there's for YouTubers out there, pros, there's a way that you can actually monetize based on your hit counts. So we don't get the kind of hit counts to get us in that category, but it flagged it to say that if we were in that program, we would not have been able to count that toward our click rate because we had copyrighted music in there, and there's a whole way that you can document whether you could use it or not and all that kind of stuff. But they were trying to put the kibosh on us, man. We were getting censored. It's like there was a Georgia Southern grad that was running the show at YouTube that day. It was like, or maybe it was a Western grad actually, since we were able to relive some of those memories. Somebody also did bring up. I got some great, as you can imagine, a great running commentary from Flynn after last week. And there's a great story that he tells that we can't necessarily tell here, but it involved post-game conversation with Mrs. Flynn after the game that solidified us being in the playoffs, and them talking about family travel for the holidays based on us being back in the playoffs again.
Yeah,
those are always fun conversations to have on a windy, dark road at 1 a.m. But
I always look forward to those text strings from Flynn after the show has made its debut.
It's great. Well, and so he brought up kind of favorite Western memories. I got a little bit of a hard time for not bringing up the baseball game in 2012, where I think Western was up 3 runs or 4 runs. And App was trying to close out the conference championship that year. That was the year Chris Pollard took App to the NCAA tournament, and trying to close out the regular season championship, and needed a win, needed 1 win down at Western to get it. And Western's up, I think, 3 runs in the 9th inning, and absolutely just kicked it away. And App, I think there was a bunt involved. There was a ball that a comebacker to the mound that was misplayed, and then it was on from there. And App ended up winning the conference championship on the field at Cullowhee, which was extra special because Western, was a perennial baseball powerhouse, and to win it on their field was just beautiful. So there are all kinds of good memories about beating Western and things. We've got plenty of opportunity to go back through that archive. So anyway. All right, boys. Well, that'll do it for episode number 11 of the quarantine. So send us an email at itsabanquetbeer@gmail.com. Should we do the Jerry Moore tribute show to close us down next week?
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Hey,
I've even got some stories I can tell over that.
101D. Here we go.
Want a piece of Snickers?
There are guys that say they wake up at night hearing him yelling at them in practice. And some of his practice rants were so like non-linear, just referencing things at points in time. So we'll have a good week getting some stories together. And if you've got any Jerry Moore memories that you would like us to relive too, let us know. It's a banquetbeer@gmail.com. All right. So for Randy Jackson on the Benny sideline, our Hall of Fame non-Soulsby's lid-wearing quarterback, Steve Brown, who we actually got to see some really good footage of this week. We need more archival footage of you, man. That was good. You had some skills.
Yeah, I used to have a bunch of VHS tapes that I don't know, at my dad's or whatever, but I'll try to pull some of those back out of the cobwebs.
I think we need to do I think in the hiatus of the quarantine, I think we need to do a Steve Brown show where it's kind of like Bobby Knight, where we watch a little bit of tape and then we go play some golf. Some commentary like that. It's like Brownie's going to teach us a sand wedge, and then we're going to watch the 3rd quarter against Chattanooga from 1978.
I need to show Jeff Vincent bobbling the snap. We get beat 21-20 at a TV game. Furman beat us 21-20, and Vinny Bulldog drops a snap and rolls out and tries to throw a pass, and he had that shoulder kept popping out. I don't know who threw a worse pass, him or Scott McConnell. It was brutal. Brutal.
Do you have any of those TV games? We got to find one of those.
Yeah,
that may be the thing to do. We'll try to find one of those this week.
Yeah, all right.
See if we can do that. All right. Well, for Steve Brown, Randy Jackson, David Jackson saying Saturday evening quarantine out. See you next week.
Have a good week.